Elara lived in a world woven from whispers. Not just the soft murmurs of the wind through the ancient trees, though those were plentiful enough in the Vale of Lumina. No, Elara's whispers were deeper, more profound, a constant, gentle symphony humming beneath the surface of everything. They were the world's quiet thoughts, its ancient memories, its very heartbeat, and Elara, with a sensitivity few others possessed, could hear them all. The Vale of Lumina was a place of breathtaking, quiet magic. Nestled between the shimmering, snow-capped crystal peaks and the sprawling emerald expanse of the Whisperwood, it was a haven of gentle light and perpetual spring. Cottages like Elara's own were not so much built as grown, their walls of living wood woven with luminous moss that glowed softly after dusk. Flowers in impossible shades of cerulean and crimson bloomed year-round, their petals unfurling to catch the morning dew, each one a tiny cup brimming with the sweetest nectar. Streams chuckled over smooth, iridescent pebbles, carrying not just water, but faint, melodic echoes of the mountain's ancient songs. Even the air itself seemed to shimmer with a delicate, almost visible magic, a soft, golden dust motes dancing in sunbeams. But for Elara, these were just the outward signs. The true magic lay in the whispers. She sat by her window, a small, intricate frame of woven willow branches, watching the twilight deepen over the valley. Her fingers, small and nimble, idly traced the patterns on the windowsill, patterns that seemed to shift and glow with an inner light. Elara had hair the color of warm honey, perpetually falling into her bright, curious eyes, which were the deep, calm green of a forest pool. She was 12 summers old, but her spirit felt far older, attuned to the ancient rhythms of her home in a way that sometimes made her feel like a very small, very old tree herself. Tonight, the whispers were particularly active, or perhaps Elara was simply listening with greater intent. She could feel the soft thrum of the earth beneath her, a slow, steady pulse that spoke of roots stretching deep and slumbering stones dreaming of time. She could hear the faint, high-pitched hum of the moon moths stirring in the lavender bushes outside, their silken wings preparing for their nightly dance. And she could feel the gentle, almost imperceptible sighs of the Whisperwood itself, a vast living entity that bordered the vale, its ancient boughs holding countless secrets. The whispers were not always sounds. Sometimes they were colors, a sudden flash of emerald in a butterfly's flight, a deeper shade of indigo in the twilight sky, telling tales of joy or sorrow. Sometimes they were scents, the sudden, sweet perfume of night-blooming jasmine carrying a memory of a distant summer, or the sharp, clean scent of rain, promising refreshment. Most often for Elara, they were feelings, a warmth that embraced her when the sun dipped below the peaks, a comforting presence of the sleeping world, or a prickle of anticipation when a new bloom was about to unfurl. To most of the people in Lumina, the whispers were simply the gentle magic that made their valley special. They felt the world's warmth, saw the flowers' impossible colors, and heard the stream's melodies, and they were content. They knew the valley was blessed, but they didn't delve into the Ji-Hao or the I-Y. Only a few, like Elara's grandmother Lyra, truly understood the intricate tapestry of the whispers. Grandmother Lyra was a woman carved from kindness and wisdom, her face a roadmap of gentle smiles and thoughtful lines. Her hair was like spun moonlight, and her eyes, though clouded by age, still held a sparkle that matched Elara's own. She was the village's storyteller, healer, and the keeper of its oldest traditions. It was Lyra who had first taught Elara to truly listen. "The world speaks, little one," Lyra had told her, many years ago, as they sat beneath the ancient elder oak, its colossal branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled, loving arms. "It sings, it dreams, it remembers, and if you listen with your heart, not just your ears, you will hear its whispers." Elara had listened, truly listened, and the world had unfolded its secrets to her. She learned to distinguish the joy whispers from the sorrow whispers, the growth whispers from the slumber whispers. She knew when a flower was thirsty, when a bird was lost, even when a cloud was heavy with unspoken rain. The whispers were her constant companions, her truest friends, the very fabric of her existence. Tonight, however, as the last sliver of sun dipped behind the crystal peaks, painting the sky in hues of lavender and apricot, Elara felt a different kind of whisper. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, a discord in the harmonious symphony she usually perceived. It was like a single, quiet note played slightly off-key in a beautiful melody. She frowned, tilting her head, trying to pinpoint its source. It wasn't a sad whisper, nor an angry one. It was more like an absence, a faint hollowness where there should have been a rich, vibrant hum. It felt thin. This particular whisper, the one that seemed to be fading, was one of the most vital. Lyra called it the heart whisper. It was the thread of pure life-giving magic that flowed through the very core of Lumina Vale, sustaining its impossible flora, its ever-flowing streams, its gentle warmth, and the very vitality of its people. It was the whisper that made the moss glow, the flowers bloom, and the air shimmer. It was the valley's lifeblood. Elara closed her eyes, focusing all her senses. The other whispers were still there, the earth's pulse, the moth's hum, the whisperwood's ancient sighs. But the heart whisper, usually a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through her very bones, was undeniably weaker. It was like a vibrant river slowly turning into a trickle. A shiver, not of cold but of unease, traced its way down Elara's spine. She slid off her window seat, her small bare feet silent on the smooth, cool floorboards. The soft glow of the moss lamps, which usually pulsed with the heart whisper, seemed a shade dimmer tonight. The colors in her room, the woven tapestries depicting scenes of the Vale, the painted pottery on her shelf, all seemed ever so slightly muted. She hurried to the small, cozy kitchen, where the scent of Grandmother Lyra's famous lavender tea usually filled the air. Lyra was there, her back to Elara, stirring something in a clay pot over a low, crackling fire of fragrant pine cones. The fire, too, seemed to burn with a less enthusiastic flicker than usual. "Oh, Grandmother?" Elara asked, her voice softer than usual. Lyra turned, her silver hair catching the dim light. Her eyes, though gentle, held a familiar knowing look. "Ah, Elarlite. I thought you might feel it tonight." Elara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Lyra knew. Of course, she knew. If Elara, with her budding sensitivity, could feel it, Lyra, with her lifetime of attunement, would have sensed it long before. "The heart whisper," Elara said, almost a question. Lyra nodded slowly, her gaze drifting towards the window, where the last vestiges of twilight were fading into a velvety darkness. "Indeed, little one, it has been fading for some days now. A gentle decline, almost imperceptible to any but the most attuned. But why?" Elara's voice held a note of genuine distress. The heart whisper was as constant as the sun, as reliable as the turning of the seasons. It simply was da. For it to fade was unthinkable. Lyra sighed, a soft rustling sound like dry leaves. She beckoned Elara closer, and Elara nestled into her grandmother's comforting embrace. The familiar scent of lavender and old parchment filled her nostrils. "That, my dear," Lyra said, stroking Elara's honey-colored hair, "it is the very question that troubles my old bones. The heart whisper is the very breath of Lumina. It flows from the ancient source, deep within the whisperwood, where the world tree sleeps." The world tree. Elara knew of it, of course. It was a legend whispered in stories, a colossal, ancient being whose roots were said to intertwine with the very foundations of the world, its branches touching the stars. It was believed to be the source of all the whispers, but especially the heart whisper, which pulsed from its slumbering heart. No one in living memory had ever seen it, or even known its exact location. It was a sacred mystery, a hidden truth. "Has this ever happened before?" Elara asked, her voice muffled against Lyra's shoulder. Lyra hummed thoughtfully. "Not in my lifetime, nor in the lifetimes of my grandmothers before me, as far as the old stories tell. A slight weakening, perhaps, during a long, harsh winter, or a season of great sorrow, but never a sustained fading like this. It feels deliberate." "Deliberate." Elara pulled back slightly, looking into her grandmother's eyes. The word sent a fresh wave of unease through her. Who or what would deliberately dim the life force of their valley? "It is as if something is drawing from it, or blocking its flow," Lyra explained, her voice low and serious. "I have been feeling the drain, the resistance, for weeks now. At first I thought it was just the natural ebb and flow, but it has grown steadily weaker." Elara thought of the flowers, their colors still vibrant, but lacking that impossible, almost luminous quality they usually possessed. The streams still chuckled, but their melodies were softer, less resonant. The very air, usually so alive with shimmering magic, felt slightly muted, like a beautiful painting seen through a thin veil. What will happen if it fades completely? Elara asked, a tremor in her voice. The thought was terrifying. A Lumina without the heart whisper was unimaginable. It would be like a song without its melody, a painting without its colors. Lyra's expression was grim. The moss lamps would cease to glow. The flowers would wither. The streams would fall silent. The very warmth would leave the air. Lumina would become like any other valley, barren of its unique magic. And eventually, life itself would struggle to thrive here. Elara gasped. The thought was unbearable. Their beautiful, gentle home, reduced to a common, struggling land? It couldn't be allowed to happen. What can we do? She pleaded, her heart pounding. Lyra took Elara's hands, her touch warm and reassuring despite the gravity of her words. That is what we must discover, Elara light. The heart whisper flows from the deepest heart of the whisperwood, from the world tree. If something is blocking it, or drawing from it, the answer must lie there. The whisperwood. It was a place of immense beauty and ancient power, but also of deep mystery. Most villagers only ventured to its fringes for firewood or berries. Its interior was said to hold spirits, forgotten paths, and magic, both wondrous and wild. Even Lyra, in her youth, had only dared to explore so far. You mean, someone has to go into the whisperwood? Elara asked, her eyes wide. She had always longed to explore the ancient forest, to hear its deepest whispers, but the thought of going alone, or even with just Lyra, filled her with a thrilling, terrifying mix of excitement and apprehension. Lyra smiled faintly. I am too old for such an undertaking, little one. My bones creak too loudly, and my ears no longer catch the fainter path whispers. But you, Elara light, your senses are keen, your heart is pure, and your connection to the whispers is stronger than any I have known. Elara felt a surge of responsibility, a thrilling sense of purpose. Her grandmother was entrusting her with this vital task. It was daunting, but the thought of Lumina fading spurred her on. I'll go, Elara declared, her voice firm. I'll find out what's happening to the heart whisper. Lyra squeezed her hands. I knew you would, but you must be wise, Elara. The whisperwood is not like our valley. Its magic is ancient and untamed. The path to the world tree is not marked by signs, but by the whispers themselves. You must listen with every fiber of your being. How will I know where to go? Elara asked, a practical question breaking through her initial enthusiasm. Lyra released her hands and walked to a small, intricately carved wooden chest by the hearth. From it, she withdrew a small, polished stone, smooth and milky white, with faint, swirling patterns within its depths. It seemed to pulse with a very faint internal light, almost mimicking the dim heart whisper itself. This is a moonstone, Lyra explained, placing it carefully in Elara's palm. It was cool and smooth to the touch. It hums with the residual heart whisper of our valley. As you venture closer to the source, or to whatever is disrupting it, this stone will guide you. If the heart whisper grows stronger, it will glow brighter. If it grows weaker, or if you stray, its light will dim. Elara clutched the moonstone. It felt like a tiny beating heart in her hand. And what else? You will need provisions, Lyra said, already gathering a small satchel from a hook on the wall. Dried fruits, Lumina bread, a flask of clear spring water, and this. She pulled out a small, intricately embroidered pouch. A handful of moon petal seeds. If you find yourself in darkness, crush one gently, and its light will illuminate your path for a short while. Elara nodded, her mind already racing with plans, her heart filled with a mixture of excitement and solemn determination. This was her quest. Her valley's fate rested on her small shoulders. The next morning, before the sun had even fully risen, painting the eastern sky in soft pastels, Elara stood at the edge of the whisperwood. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of damp earth and ancient leaves. The familiar, comforting hum of the whispers was still there, but the absence of the vibrant heart whisper left a noticeable void. Lyra stood beside her, her gaze thoughtful as she looked into the shadowy depths of the forest. Remember, Elara light, the whisperwood is alive. Be respectful, listen to its stories, and trust your heart. The whispers will guide you. Elara, wearing sturdy leather boots and a cloak woven from the softest wool, adjusted the satchel on her shoulder. The moonstone, tucked into a small pocket, pulsed with a faint, steady light against her side. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the crisp, cool air. She looked at Lyra, a silent promise in her green eyes. Then, with a final determined nod, she turned and stepped into the whisper wood. The trees immediately closed around her, their ancient branches forming a dense canopy that filtered the nascent sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air inside was different, cooler, more hushed, imbued with a sense of profound age. The familiar whispers of Lumina Vale began to recede, replaced by a new symphony of sounds and sensations. Here, the whispers were older, deeper. She felt the slow, deliberate pulse of roots intertwining beneath the earth, the rustle of unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth, the distant, mournful call of a forest bird. The scent of pine needles and damp moss was strong, mingled with something else, a faint, sweet smell, like forgotten memories blooming. Elara walked slowly, carefully, her senses alert. The moonstone in her pocket pulsed with a weak but steady light, a tiny beacon in the vastness. She focused on its subtle pull, a faint, almost magnetic tug that seemed to draw her deeper into the wood. The path, if one could call it that, was barely discernible, a faint indentation in the mossy ground. But Elara didn't need a clear path. She had the whispers. She felt the path whispers, faint currents in the air, a subtle shift in the light, a gentle pull from certain trees. They guided her past gnarled roots that rose from the ground like sleeping serpents, around ancient boulders draped in shimmering lichens, and through thickets of ferns that brushed against her legs like soft green fingers. As she ventured deeper, the trees grew taller, their trunks wider, their branches reaching higher, forming a cathedral ceiling of green. The silence here was profound, broken only by the gentle murmuring of the whispers. The heart whisper, which had been a faint hum in the vale, was almost non-existent here, a ghostly echo of its former self. This confirmed Lyra's words. The source itself was compromised. Elara paused, leaning against the rough bark of an ancient fir, its needles smelling faintly of citrus. She closed her eyes, letting the whispers wash over her. She felt the ancient wisdom of the tree, its slow, patient life, its connection to the vast network of roots that spread beneath the entire forest. She opened her eyes, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She followed the moonstone's faint pull, deeper and deeper into the emerald heart of the whisperwood, a place where time seemed to slow, and the very air hummed with forgotten magic. The journey was long, and the forest vast, but Elara pressed on, her small figure resolute against the backdrop of the towering trees, guided by the faintest whispers of a world in need. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth, sweet, night-blooming jasmine, and something else, something ancient and wild that tickled the back of Elara's nose, the scent of pure, untamed magic. As she ventured deeper, the trees began to change. Their bark, once a familiar rugged gray-brown, now shimmered with iridescent flecks of sapphire and emerald. Mosses hung like emerald beards, glowing with a soft internal luminescence that cast shifting patterns on the forest floor, illuminating tiny, jewel-bright beetles that scurried across fallen leaves. The path, if it could be called that, was less a discernible trail and more a feeling, a gentle inclination of the roots beneath her feet, a subtle tilt in the growth of the surrounding flora, all pulling her in the direction the moonstone pulsed. It wasn't a demanding beacon, but a soft, persistent thrum against her skin, like a heartbeat in unison with her own. Her connection to the roots grew stronger with every step, a vast, invisible network of whispers and vibrations. She could sense the slow pulse of sap rising in ancient trunks, the tiny tremors of burrowing creatures, the deep, slumbering rhythm of the earth itself. The whisperwood truly lived up to its name here. The wind, when it stirred, didn't rustle leaves so much as it sang through them, a chorus of high, reedy notes and deep, resonant hums. Sometimes, she thought she heard actual words, ancient and melodic, just beyond the edge of her hearing like a forgotten lullaby. Flowers, unlike any she had ever seen, unfurled petals that glowed faintly, opening and closing in time with the forest's unseen breath. Some had petals like spun moonlight, others like polished obsidian, each with a tiny sparkling dewdrop at its heart. Hours melted into a timeless flow. The canopy above was so dense that only slivers of the true moon could pierce through, creating ephemeral spotlights on patches of luminous fungi. Elara felt no hunger, no thirst, only a profound sense of purpose and a gentle, growing awe. The forest was nurturing her, sustaining her, whispering secrets into her spirit. She came upon a clearing where the trees grew in spiraling patterns, their branches weaving together to form a living dome. In the center of this natural cathedral, a stream flowed, but its waters weren't clear. Instead, it was a river of liquid starlight, shimmering and swirling with nebulae of silver and gold. As it flowed, it hummed a low, soothing melody that resonated deep within her chest. Tiny, translucent fish, like swimming constellations, darted through the luminous currents. Elara knelt by its edge, dipping her fingers into the cool, sparkling flow. It felt like liquid silk, and when she withdrew her hand, her skin glowed with a faint, ephemeral shimmer. The moonstone pulsed more strongly here, resonating with the starlight stream. Suddenly, a playful giggle echoed from behind a particularly ancient, gnarled tree whose bark resembled a sleeping face. Well, well, what have we here? A little flicker of starlight, wandering where only shadows usually dare. Elara turned, her heart giving a little jump, but there was no fear, only curiosity. Peeking out from behind the tree was a creature unlike any she had ever imagined. It was no bigger than her thumb, with translucent wings like a dragonfly's, shimmering with all the colors of the starlight stream. Its body was slender and graceful, its skin a faint emerald, and its eyes sparkled with mischievous intelligence. Its hair was a vibrant cascade of fiery orange and sunset pink, intricately woven with tiny blossoms. "Are you a sprite?" Elara whispered, captivated. The tiny creature flitted out, hovering before her face, its wings beating so fast they were a blur. "A luminous sprite, if you please. And you, little starlight, are far from your well-trodden paths. What brings a human to the heart of the Whisperwood? Few find their way here without intent, and even fewer without an invitation." "The moonstone," Elara said, holding up her hand. The stone pulsed warmly, and the sprite's eyes widened. "It guides me. I feel the forest is in need. I want to help." The luminous sprite tilted its head, its expression shifting from mischief to a surprising gravity. "The heartwood does ache, little one. A slow fading, like a song sung softer and softer until it's almost gone. The moonstone, it feels ancient, powerful. A key, perhaps, to a forgotten melody." It circled Elara, examining the stone with intense interest. "You feel the roots, don't you? The whispers?" Elara nodded. "Yes, it's like I can hear the forest's thoughts." The sprite landed softly on the moonstone, its tiny feet tingling against Elara's skin. "Remarkable. Then you must meet the Whisper Weaver. She knows the oldest songs, the deepest sorrows. She dwells in the grove of echoes, where the first trees ever stood." It looked up at Elara, its eyes sparkling once more. "But the way is tricky, riddles of light and shadow, paths that shift like dreams. Will you show me?" Elara asked, her voice filled with hope. The sprite giggled. "Of course. What's an adventure without a guide? My name is Flicker. Follow me, little starlight, and mind your step. The Whisperwood keeps its greatest treasures hidden well." With a burst of shimmering light, Flicker darted ahead, a tiny, glowing beacon leading the way. Elara followed, a renewed sense of wonder filling her. Having a companion, even a tiny, mischievous sprite, made the vastness of the Whisperwood feel a little less daunting. Flicker led Elara deeper still, through areas where the trees twisted into fantastic shapes, forming living archways and intricate natural labyrinths. They passed through a glade, where giant, luminous mushrooms pulsed with a gentle rhythm, their caps shedding spores that drifted like golden dust. Flicker warned her not to touch the glowing dust, explaining it could cause one to dream for 100 years, lost in visions of forgotten stars. The terrain became more challenging. Roots, thick as ancient serpents, crisscrossed the ground, forming intricate patterns that Elara had to navigate carefully. At one point, they reached a chasm, its depths shrouded in swirling mist. Flicker simply pointed to a series of glowing stepping stones that appeared and disappeared across the void, seemingly at random. "They only appear for those whose hearts are true," Flicker chirped, "and whose steps are light and mindful." Elara took a deep breath, focusing on the moonstone's steady pulse and her connection to the roots. She felt a subtle vibration beneath her feet, guiding her to the next stone before it even fully materialized. With each step, The mist swirled away, revealing a temporary, solid platform, only to dissipate once she had moved on. It was a dance of trust and intuition, and Elara moved with a grace she hadn't known she possessed, guided by the very essence of the forest. Beyond the chasm lay a grove of truly ancient trees. These weren't merely large, they were colossal, their trunks wider than a small house, their canopies reaching so high they seemed to brush against the fabric of the sky itself. Their bark was not smooth but deeply furrowed, etched with swirling patterns that looked like ancient script, telling stories of epochs long past. Moss, thicker and softer than velvet, clung to every surface, glowing with an even more intense, calming light. The air here was heavy with an almost palpable stillness, a profound sense of peace and immeasurable age. "Welcome to the Grove of Echoes," Flicker whispered, its voice hushed in reverence. "The Whisper Weaver awaits." In the very center of the grove, nestled amongst the roots of the 5 oldest trees, was a structure that seemed to be woven from the forest itself. It was a gnarled living throne crafted from intertwined branches, thick vines and layers of rich, emerald moss. And upon this throne sat the Whisper Weaver. She was an awe-inspiring figure, tall and slender, yet radiating immense power. Her skin was the color of rich, dark earth, dappled with patches of iridescent moss that shifted and gleamed. Her hair was a cascade of silver-green leaves and delicate, phosphorescent fungi, woven with tiny blooming flowers. Her eyes, deep pools of liquid amber, held the wisdom of countless centuries, and her gaze, though ancient, was gentle and full of warmth. Her dress seemed to be fashioned from woven bark, soft moss, and delicate spider silk, adorned with dewdrop gems that sparkled like tiny stars. As Elara approached, the Whisper Weaver extended a hand, its fingers long and elegant, adorned with rings of living wood. "Welcome, Elara of the Moonstone." Her voice was like the gentle rustling of leaves in a soft breeze, yet it resonated with deep authority, echoing slightly in the ancient grove. Flicker spoke true. "You carry the heart's song, you hear the whispers." Elara knelt, feeling an instinctive respect for this ancient being. "Great Whisper Weaver, the forest spoke to me. It told me it was in need. I wish to understand, and to help." The Whisper Weaver smiled, a slow, profound unfurling that seemed to bring more light to the grove. "The forest does indeed weep, child. A slow fading, as Flicker said. For generations beyond counting, the Whisperwood has been nourished by the song of the first bloom, a magic woven into the very fabric of this land by the ancient ones. It is the lifeblood of our deepest magic, the source of the starlight stream, the luminescence of our mosses, and the vibrancy of all life here." She paused, her gaze distant, as if looking through time. "But the song of the first bloom is fading. Its melody grows faint, its magic wanes. A creeping shadow, born of forgotten sorrow and ancient imbalance, has begun to absorb its light, drawing the very essence from the heart of the forest. If it fades completely, the Whisperwood will fall silent. Its magic will dry up, and the world beyond its borders will lose a vital pulse of life and wonder." Elara felt a pang of sorrow, a deep ache in her chest that mirrored the forest's pain. "What can be done? Can the song be rekindled?" "It can," the Whisper Weaver affirmed, her eyes now fixed on Elara's moonstone. "The moonstone is not merely a guide, child. It is a key. It is a fragment of the celestial heart, a sister stone to the very first bloom itself. It holds the pure potential, the echo of the original melody, capable of reawakening the song." "But how?" Elara asked, a mix of hope and trepidation filling her. The task seemed immense, almost impossible. "The first bloom lies at the very core of the Whisperwood, in a place known as the Cradle of Dawn," the Whisper Weaver explained. "It is a sacred chamber, protected by ancient enchantments and hidden by the deepest mists. To reach it, you must follow the song, not merely the moonstone's pull, but the true melody of the forest, the faint, fading notes you have already begun to hear. The moonstone will amplify these notes, guiding you through the veils of illusion that guard the cradle." She reached out, her long fingers gently touching the moonstone. As her touch met the stone, it pulsed with an extraordinary light, brighter than Elara had ever seen, filling the entire grove with a soft silver glow. The patterns on the ancient trees seemed to swirl, and the air thrummed with heightened magic. "The moonstone senses its twin," the Whisper Weaver murmured. "But the path to the cradle is not without peril. The shadow that feeds on the song has grown stronger. It weaves illusions, creates doubts, and tries to turn away those who seek to heal the forest. You must be unwavering in your purpose, pure of heart, and connected deeply to the whispers of the Whisperwood. For only with true intent can the illusions be pierced, and only with a heart in harmony with the forest can the song be fully out. I will do whatever it takes, Elara promised, her voice firm. The Whisper Weaver nodded, a profound satisfaction in her amber eyes. There is one more thing you must understand. The song of the first bloom is not just a melody, it is a tapestry of life, woven with the dreams of all creatures, the flow of all waters, the growth of all plants. To rekindle it, you must not only reach the cradle, but you must also offer a piece of your own heart to the forest. A pure intention woven with love and respect. The moonstone will help you focus this energy. Flicker, who had been listening silently from Elara's shoulder, suddenly chirped, and she'll need a guide through the veils. I know the subtle shifts, the tricks of light and shadow. I can help her see what's truly there, and what is merely a dream. The Whisper Weaver smiled at the tiny sprite. Indeed, Flicker, your quick eyes and even quicker wit will be invaluable. Together, you shall journey to the cradle of dawn. The path will reveal itself as you move, but know this, the deeper you go, the more the forest will test your resolve. But it will also lend you its strength. Trust in the whispers, Elara. Trust in your own heart. She then presented Elara with a gift. From a pouch woven from glowing spider silk, she drew out a single perfect blossom. Its petals were like spun glass, iridescent and impossibly delicate, and within its heart, a tiny constant flame flickered. This is a firefly bloom, the Whisper Weaver explained. It draws its light from the deepest warmth of the earth. When you feel lost or when the shadows try to dim your spirit, hold it close. Its warmth will remind you of the enduring light within the Whisperwood, and within yourself. Elara gently took the firefly bloom. It felt warm and vibrant in her palm, radiating a soft, steady glow that cut through the ancient gloom of the grove. It was a beautiful, tangible symbol of hope. The time for rest is past, little starlight, Flicker announced, hovering excitedly. The cradle of dawn awaits, and the veils of illusion are no match for a luminous sprite and a moonstone bearer. Elara rose, the firefly bloom clutched in one hand, the moonstone glowing steadily in the other. Her connection to the forest felt like a vibrant river flowing through her veins, strong and clear. The whispers were no longer faint. They were a chorus, a symphony of a forest reaching out, guiding her, believing in her. She looked at the Whisper Weaver, a silent promise in her eyes. Go with the blessings of the Whisperwood, Elara, the ancient being said, her voice echoing one last time through the grove of echoes. May your light pierce the deepest shadows, and may your heart rekindle the oldest song. With a nod, Elara turned, Flicker darting ahead, a tiny, enthusiastic guide. She stepped out of the sacred grove, deeper into the heart of the Whisperwood, toward the veils of illusion and the hidden cradle of dawn. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges she could only imagine, but she carried the strength of the forest within her, the light of the firefly bloom, and the unwavering guidance of the moonstone. The world was indeed in need, and Elara, a simple girl from the edge of the woods, was now its truest hope, stepping into a destiny whispered by the very trees themselves. The air around Elara thickened, not with mist, but with a shimmering, almost visible weave of light and shadow. The familiar comforting scent of damp earth and pine needles began to warp, replaced by an elusive fragrance like distant lilies and forgotten rain. The trees, so steadfast and ancient moments before, seemed to breathe, their massive trunks subtly shifting, their branches blurring at the edges as if painted onto a canvas that was still wet. This was it then. The threshold of the veils of illusion. Elara clutched the moonstone, its cool, smooth surface a steady anchor in the burgeoning unreality. Its soft inner glow intensified, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to echo her own heartbeat, a reassuring counterpoint to the growing disorientation around her. The firefly bloom, tucked into her satchel, began to emit a faint, persistent hum, a vibration she could feel against her side, like a tiny living compass. She took a tentative step forward. The ground beneath her foot felt solid, yet her eyes told her it was rippling like water. A path, clear and inviting, opened before her, carpeted in moss that seemed to glow with an otherworldly luminescence. But as she watched, The moonstone's light flickered, drawing her gaze to a barely perceptible overgrown track just to the left, almost swallowed by twisted roots and shadowed ferns. The obvious path beckoned with promises of ease, but the moonstone urged her toward the hidden or difficult way. "Trust what you feel, not what you see," she whispered to herself, recalling a fragment of an old forest saying. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the feeling of the moonstone's pulse guide her, then opened them and carefully stepped onto the overgrown track. The mossy, luminous path shimmered and dissolved behind her, revealing only more dense undergrowth where it had been. A shiver ran down her spine. The first test passed. Deeper into the vale she ventured, and the illusions grew bolder, more insistent. The trees no longer merely shifted, they began to twist into impossible shapes, their bark swirling with colors that didn't exist in nature, their leaves whispering forgotten languages. Sounds drifted to her. The distant, melodic call of a bird that quickly dissolved into the rush of a phantom river, then the faint, familiar laughter of her own mother, calling her home. "Elara, come back, it's too dangerous," the voice pleaded, warm and loving exactly as her mother's would be. A vision solidified before her. Her small cottage at the edge of the whisperwood, smoke curling lazily from its chimney, the warmth of home radiating from its open door. The smell of her mother's stew, the comfort of her own bed, beckoned with overwhelming sweetness. A wave of longing washed over Elara, sharp and sudden. A part of her yearned to run towards it, to forget the arduous quest and the burden of a fading world. But the moonstone in her hand grew intensely cold, a warning. The firefly bloom's hum vibrated with a frantic urgency against her hip. This wasn't real. Her mother would never call her back from a necessary journey. Her mother, too, knew the world was in need. With a deep breath, Elara focused on the moonstone's cold guidance, on the bloom's unwavering energy. She pushed through the illusion, walking directly through the shimmering image of her home. For a terrifying moment, she felt a chill pass through her, as if walking through a ghost. The laughter faded, the smells vanished, and the cottage dissolved into a swirling vortex of mist, leaving her once more amidst the impossibly shaped trees. Her heart pounded, but a new resolve settled within her. She would not be swayed. The veils, however, were relentless. They tested not just her senses, but her very spirit. She saw visions of herself failing. The world plunged into eternal twilight. The firefly bloom withered to dust, the moonstone fractured. She saw herself alone, lost, forgotten. Doubt, a creeping vine, began to coil around her heart. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I'm just a simple girl who dreamed too big? And then said, just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a small, vibrant light flickered in her peripheral vision. It was a true firefly, a tiny beacon of orange gold pulsing steadily. Then another, and another, until a small constellation of them danced just beyond the reach of the illusions, their honest light a stark contrast to the deceptive shimmer of the veils. They were drawn by the firefly bloom, she realized, a silent chorus of support from the forest itself. Their presence, small as it was, reminded her of the strength that flowed through the whisperwood, the strength she now carried within her. She closed her eyes again, not to block out the illusions, but to look inward. She felt the ancient roots of the trees beneath her feet, the silent hum of life that persisted even here. She remembered the warmth of the sun on her face, the gentle caress of the wind. She was not alone. The forest was with her. When she opened her eyes, the illusions seemed to have softened, their edges less sharp, their colors less jarring. The moonstone pulsed with a calm, steady light, cutting through the haze. She noticed now that the moonstone's light, when focused, didn't dispel the illusions entirely, but rather allowed her to see through them, like looking through a clear pane of glass at a distorted landscape. She could perceive the underlying reality, the true, albeit still magical path. As she continued, a new phenomenon emerged. Small, shimmering figures, like motes of pure light, began to appear around her. They danced and swirled, sometimes coalescing into vague humanoid shapes, then dissolving into trails of stardust. These were the glimmer wisps, the elusive inhabitants of the veils, creatures born of the interplay of light and illusion. They weren't malicious, Elara sensed, but merely curious, drawn to the purity of the firefly bloom and the clarity of the moonstone. One wisp, larger and brighter than the others, hovered before her, its form shifting like a living kaleidoscope. It extended a long, luminous arm, pointing not with a finger, but with an unfolding wave of light, toward a particularly dense thicket of shimmering thorns. The thorns looked menacing, their points glowing with an ethereal, dangerous light. But the glimmer-wisp, and the moonstone's steady guidance, urged her forward. Ilara hesitated, then took a deep breath. Trusting her newfound understanding, she reached out her hand. Instead of piercing her skin, the thorns parted, their glowing points retracting as if bowing to her touch. She stepped through, and the thicket closed gently behind her. She looked back, and the glimmer-wisp nodded, its light swirling in what felt like approval, before it dissolved back into the shimmering air. Beyond the thorn thicket, the landscape began to change more dramatically. The air grew clearer, though still imbued with a profound sense of magic. The shifting colors gave way to a tapestry of soft pastel hues, and the jarring sounds were replaced by a gentle, ethereal music that seemed to emanate from the very stones and trees. This was no longer the heart of the deceptive vales, but perhaps the shimmering borderlands of the Cradle of Dawn itself. The path beneath her feet became distinctly visible, a winding track of iridescent pebbles that glowed with an inner light. Ancient, colossal trees, their bark like polished mother-of-pearl, lined the path. Their leaves, instead of green, were a myriad of blues, purples, and soft golds, catching the light and shimmering like jewels. Flowers, unlike any she had ever seen, bloomed in profusion, their petals spinning slowly in the air, releasing a fragrance that was both sweet and invigorating. She felt a growing sense of wonder, a quiet anticipation replacing the earlier anxiety. The moonstone pulsed with a joyful rhythm now, and the firefly bloom vibrated with a gentle, humming warmth. She was close. As she rounded a bend in the iridescent path, the trees parted to reveal a breathtaking sight. Before her lay not a clearing, but a vast, open expanse, enclosed by a towering natural amphitheater of the pearl-bark trees. In the center, nestled like a precious gem, was a crystalline lake, its surface so still and clear, it reflected the celestial dome above with perfect fidelity. But this was no ordinary reflection. Within the depths of the lake, light pulsed and swirled, forming intricate patterns, like constellations dancing in slow motion. And at the very heart of the lake, rising from its luminous depths, was a structure unlike anything Ilara had ever imagined. It was a colossal flower, formed not of petals and stem, but of pure, solidified light. Its immense, translucent petals unfurled towards the unseen sky, each one glowing with a soft inner luminescence that shifted through all the colors of dawn and twilight. This was the Cradle of Dawn. As Ilara approached the edge of the crystalline lake, a figure emerged from the shimmering light of the colossal flower. It was tall and slender, its form composed of interwoven strands of moonlight and starlight, yet undeniably feminine. Her hair floated like liquid silver, adorned with tiny, luminous blossoms. Her eyes, ancient and wise, held the calm serenity of 1,000 sunrises. She wore robes woven from what looked like spun starlight, and in her hand she held a staff of polished crystal, tipped with a single perfectly formed dewdrop that seemed to contain a miniature galaxy. "Welcome, Ilara," the being's voice resonated, not with sound but directly within Ilara's mind, a melody of pure thought. "We have awaited your arrival." Ilara felt no fear, only a profound sense of reverence. Who are you?" she managed to whisper, her voice sounding small and inadequate in the face of such grandeur. "I am Lyra," the being replied, her gaze gentle. "I am the keeper of the Cradle of Dawn, a spirit born of the first light, tasked with tending to the nascent magic of this world." She gestured with her crystal staff towards the luminous flower, and the light within its petals pulsed in response. For generations untold, this cradle has been the heartspring of the world's magic, slowly releasing its power into the land, renewing life and wonder. Lyra's luminous eyes softened with a touch of sorrow. "But as you know, the flow has diminished, the world grows dim, its magic fading, its creatures falling into slumber, its forests losing their song." Ilara nodded, the weight of her journey heavy on her heart once more. "The Whisperwood sent me. I carry the firefly bloom and the moonstone guides me. They spoke of a lost light and a way to heal the world." Lyra smiled, a radiant, gentle expression that made the very air shimmer. "Indeed, little one," The Whisperwood spoke truly. The cradle holds the essence of that lost light, but it slumbers deeply, weakened by the encroaching shadows. It needs to be awakened, to be rekindled. She extended her hand, and a small vibrant motes of light coalesced in her palm, swirling like a miniature galaxy. This cradle of dawn, though powerful, cannot simply create magic. It nurtures and amplifies. It requires a spark, a catalyst, from the outside world to truly awaken its dormant power. Lyra's gaze fixed on the firefly bloom, still humming gently in Elara's satchel. The firefly bloom, it is more than just a flower, Elara. It is a vessel of pure, untainted light, gathered from the very heart of the Whisperwood, from the deepest well springs of life. It is the purest essence of hope and vibrant magic left in your world. That is the spark the cradle needs. Elara carefully took the firefly bloom from her satchel. Its petals seemed to glow brighter in Lyra's presence, its warmth spreading through her hand. How do I use it? You must place it within the heart of the cradle, Lyra explained, her voice resonating with ancient wisdom. But it is not enough to simply place it. You must give it your own light, your own hope, your own belief, for true magic, little one, is always woven with the heart of the one who wields it. Lyra then pointed with her staff to a narrow, shimmering pathway that seemed to materialize across the crystalline lake, leading directly into the heart of the colossal lightflower. This path will guide you. Within the innermost chamber, you will find a pool of liquid starlight. Place the firefly bloom within it, and let your heart guide the rest. Elara felt a thrill of both anticipation and trepidation. This was it. The moment she had journeyed so far for. She looked at the firefly bloom, then at the unwavering light in Lyra's eyes. She took a deep breath, the clean, magical air filling her lungs. Go, Elara, Lyra urged, her voice soft but firm. The world awaits its dawn. With a nod, Elara stepped onto the shimmering path. It felt like walking on solidified moonlight, firm beneath her feet, yet radiating a soft, cool energy. The crystalline lake stretched out on either side, its depth swirling with patterns of light that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. As she walked, the colossal lightflower grew larger, its intricate petals revealing even more delicate patterns of light and shadow, like the intricate veins of a leaf, but woven from pure energy. She reached the entrance to the flower's heart, a shimmering archway that pulsed with a gentle rhythm. As she passed through, the air inside became warm and vibrant, imbued with a sweet, earthy scent, like flowers blooming after a long rain. The chamber was immense, yet felt intimate, its walls glowing with a soft, diffused light. In the very center, nestled amidst roots of living light, was a pool. It wasn't water, but a swirling liquid starlight, its surface alive with tiny, twinkling lights, like a captured piece of the night sky. This was the heart of the cradle. Elara knelt beside the pool, the firefly bloom cradled in her hands. Its light pulsed in sync with the liquid starlight, as if recognizing its kindred spirit. She closed her eyes and for a moment let her mind wander back. She thought of the ancient oaks of the Whisperwood, their silent strength. She thought of the tiny, brave fireflies that had guided her through the veils. She thought of her mother's gentle hand, her father's quiet wisdom. She thought of the fading world, the quiet villages, the sorrowful whispers of the dying forests. And she thought of hope. Hope that the world could be vibrant again, that the magic could return, that the sun would shine brightly once more. She poured all her belief, all her love for the world, all her simple, brave heart into the firefly bloom. Then, with a gentle prayer-like motion, she lowered the firefly bloom into the pool of liquid starlight. The moment the bloom touched the surface, a surge of energy erupted. The liquid starlight pulsed, not just around the flower, but throughout the entire pool, sending ripples of pure, incandescent light outwards. The firefly bloom, instead of sinking, seemed to dissolve into the starlight, its essence merging, spreading, becoming one with the cradle's heart. The light grew, filling the chamber with a blinding, yet utterly gentle radiance. Elara had to shield her eyes, but even through her fingers, she could see the light intensify, shifting from pure white to a myriad of colors, the deep blues of twilight, the soft purples of dawn, the vibrant golds of a rising sun. A deep hum resonated through the very ground beneath her, a sound that vibrated not just in her ears, but in her bones, in her soul. It was the sound of awakening, of power stirring after a long slumber. The ancient roots of light around the pool began to glow with renewed vigor, their intricate patterns flowing with fresh energy. Then, slowly, majestically, the light began to consolidate. From the very center of the pool, where the firefly bloom had merged, a new form began to emerge. It was not a flower this time, but a swirling vortex of pure living light pulsing with an incredible vibrant energy. It rose from the starlight pool, growing taller, brighter, until it hovered above the surface, a beacon of nascent magic. This was the lost light, reborn. It was not a static object, but a dynamic, ever-changing source of power, shimmering with all the colors of renewed life. Elara felt its warmth wash over her, invigorating her, filling her with a sense of boundless energy. The moonstone on her wrist glowed with a joyful, steady light, and she could feel the whisperwood, far away, stirring in response, its own ancient strength resonating with the cradle's awakening. Lyra, the keeper of the cradle, appeared at the entrance to the chamber, her form now even more luminous, reflecting the immense power unleashed. A look of profound joy and relief graced her starlit features. "You have done it, Elara," Lyra's voice echoed, strong and clear, resonating through the chamber. "You have awakened the lost light. The heart of the world beats anew." The pulsing vortex of light above the pool began to send out shimmering tendrils, like roots reaching for sustenance, that wove themselves into the glowing walls of the chamber. Then outward, beyond the colossal light flower, beyond the crystalline lake, and into the very fabric of the world itself. Elara could feel the magic flowing, a gentle healing current spreading outward from the cradle of dawn, touching every tree, every creature, every stone. The world was not healed yet, she knew. This was just the beginning. The lost light was awakened, but it needed to be guided, sustained, and protected as it spread its restorative magic. The shadows that had caused the fading still lingered, subtle and elusive, but now, a powerful force of light had been unleashed to counter them. Lyra turned to Elara, her gaze filled with a new purpose. "The first task is complete, brave one. But the journey is far from over. The lost light now flows, but it must reach the furthest corners of the world, and there are still obstacles in its path, places where the shadows have taken deepest root." Elara felt the call of her destiny, stronger and clearer than ever before. The strength of the whisperwood, the clarity of the moonstone, and now the vibrant power of the awakened lost light coursing through her veins, all reaffirmed her purpose. She was ready. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them. For the world, now touched by a new dawn, needed her more than ever. Elara felt the call of her destiny, stronger and clearer than ever before. The strength of the whisperwood, the clarity of the moonstone, and now the vibrant power of the awakened lost light coursing through her veins, all reaffirmed her purpose. She was ready. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them. For the world, now touched by a new dawn, needed her more than ever. With a deep breath that carried the scent of ancient moss and starlight, Elara stepped out from the embrace of the whisperwood. The trees seemed to sigh a soft farewell, their leaves rustling like 1,000 tiny hands waving goodbye. The moonstone, now a radiant beacon on her chest, pulsed with a gentle warmth, guiding her gaze towards the north, where the sky hung heavy and bruised, even in the new dawn. That was where the deepest shadows clung, in a land whispered about only in hushed tones, the shrouded wastes. Her journey began with purpose. The lost light within her was not a rushing torrent, but a quiet, persistent wellspring of warmth and clarity. It hummed a soft melody, a song of hope that echoed the moonstone's gentle thrum. Days turned into nights, and nights into days, as Elara traversed sun-dappled plains and trickling streams, her steps light, her spirit resolute. But as she ventured further north, the air grew colder, the colors faded, and the silence became profound, broken only by the mournful sigh of the wind. Finally, she reached the edge of the shrouded wastes. It was a desolate panorama of ash-gray earth, twisted, skeletal trees, and a sky perpetually overcast, filtering the sun into a pale, sickly glow. A heavy, oppressive stillness hung in the air, a stillness that felt like forgotten grief. Here, Even the shadows seemed to have a weight, pressing down on the very soul. As Elara ventured into the wastes, she encountered its inhabitants. They were not monstrous, but sorrowful. Small, wispy creatures, barely visible against the grey landscape, flitted like lost thoughts. They were the Whispering Wights, born of forgotten dreams and unexpressed sadness, their forms barely more than shimmering mist. They clung to the shadows, their tiny, almost inaudible whispers speaking of longing and ancient despair. Larger, more substantial beings lumbered silently through the gloom. The gloom moths, their wings once vibrant, now dull and dusty, their purpose lost, their bodies absorbing any stray flicker of light. Elara felt a pang of empathy for these lost beings. This was not a place to fight, but to heal. She extended her hand, and the lost light flowed from her, not as a blinding flash, but as a gentle, unfurling warmth. It spread across the desolate ground, coaxing forth faint hints of green in the ash-laden soil. It touched the Whispering Wights, and their forms, once indistinct, shimmered with a soft, comforting luminescence. Their whispers changed, becoming a soft, harmonious hum, a song of quiet peace. They no longer clung to the shadows but drifted gracefully, their sadness soothed. The gloom moths, too, felt the touch of the lost light. As it caressed their dusty wings, the grey began to recede, replaced by patterns of iridescent silver and soft moonlight. They became moon moths, their wings now reflecting and scattering the gentle light, no longer absorbing it but sharing it. They lifted into the air, dancing in silent spirals, bringing a new quiet beauty to the desolate land. A small pocket of the shrouded wastes had been transformed, a shimmering oasis of gentle light and renewed hope. Elara felt the strength of her purpose deepen, knowing that the lost light was not just power, but profound compassion. But the journey continued. Deeper into the wastes, the air grew colder, and the shadows solidified into tangible presences. The ground began to slope downwards, leading her to a vast gaping maw in the earth. The echoing chasm. It was a wound in the world, impossibly deep, its darkness absolute. From its depths rose a low, resonant hum, a sound that vibrated not just in her ears, but in her very bones. It was the collective echo of all the world's forgotten fears, all its lost hopes, all its ancient sorrows, reverberating through the ages. The chasm did not seek to harm her physically, but to overwhelm her spirit. Whispers rose from its depths, insidious and subtle, tapping into every doubt she had ever held, every small fear she had ever felt. "You are alone," they hissed. "Your light is but a flicker against this ancient darkness. You will fail, just as all light eventually fades." The weight of millennia of despair pressed upon her, threatening to extinguish the spark within her. Elara stumbled, the moonstone dimming slightly against her chest. For a moment, she felt the chill of true despair, a vast, consuming emptiness. But then, she remembered the Whisperwood's ancient strength, the moonstone's unwavering clarity, and the gentle, persistent warmth of the lost light. This was not a battle of strength, but of heart. She closed her eyes, drawing a deep breath, and focused not on pushing back the despair, but on understanding it. She didn't fight the echoes, she listened to them, feeling the profound sadness, the deep-seated fear that had birthed them. And then, she opened her heart, pouring out not power, but empathy. The lost light flowed from her, not as a beam, but as an embrace. It descended into the chasm, a shimmering, warm mist. It touched the ancient echoes, not silencing them, but soothing them. The whispers of fear began to soften into sighs of release, the cries of sorrow into murmurs of peace. The oppressive hum lessened, replaced by a gentle, resonant chord of quiet understanding. As the lost light permeated the depths, a wondrous thing happened. From the very floor of the chasm, threads of pure, shimmering light began to rise, weaving themselves together. They formed a bridge, not of stone or wood, but of solidified starlight, arching gracefully across the vast expanse. It was a path born of compassion, a testament to the power of understanding over conflict. Elara stepped onto the shimmering bridge, her heart lighter, her resolve renewed. The echoes beneath her feet were no longer a threat, but a choir of softened memories, at peace. The path led her deeper into the earth, into a realm where the air grew heavy, thick with a primordial energy that felt both ancient and profoundly sad. She found herself in a vast, silent cavern, its ceiling so high it was lost in perpetual gloom. At its very heart, pulsing with a slow rhythmic beat, was the source of all the lingering shadows, the gloom root. It was not a creature, but a vast interwoven network of roots, thicker than any tree, stretching beyond sight. It was ancient beyond imagining, a primal reservoir of the world's accumulated grief, forgotten fears and unreleased sorrows, solidified over eons into this dark living mass. It wasn't evil, it was simply starved of light, starved of connection, starved of comfort. In its desperate hunger, it had drawn the world's vitality into itself, creating the shadows not out of malice, but out of a profound unconscious need. The air around the gloom root was thick with its silent sorrow. It pressed upon Ilara, a physical weight that threatened to pull her into its ancient bottomless despair. It sought to envelop her, not to harm, but to draw her into its aching emptiness, to share its burden. She felt the pull, the heavy current of millennia of unresolved sadness. But Ilara understood. This was not something to be destroyed, but to be healed. This ancient heart of shadows needed not defiance, but boundless compassion. It needed the lost light to fill its emptiness, to soothe its ancient forgotten grief. With all her heart, Ilara unleashed the lost light. It did not erupt in a blinding flash, but flowed from her in a gentle, all-encompassing tide. It was a wave of pure empathy, courage, and unconditional love, carrying the vibrant strength of the whisperwood, the serene clarity of the moonstone, and the potent warmth of her own awakened spirit. The lost light permeated the gloom root, not burning it, but embracing it. It seeped into the gnarled, dark mass, a slow, profound transformation. The heavy, oppressive shadows began to lighten, swirling like smoke, not dissipating into nothingness, but transforming. They resolved into shimmering motes of ancient starlight, whispers of forgotten dreams, and soft ethereal light that pulsed with a newfound peace. The gloom root itself began to glow, no longer with the dull, oppressive pulse of darkness, but with a deep, earthy, comforting light, like the heart of a slumbering mountain. It was no longer a source of despair, but a wellspring of ancient wisdom, connected to the earth's deepest memories, now revitalized and reconnected to the world's vibrant magic. A great, silent sigh seemed to pass through the very fabric of the world. The shadows which had clung to every corner began to recede, not banished, but healed. The shrouded wastes transformed, the ash-gray earth blossoming with subtle colors, the skeletal trees unfurling tender, green leaves. The land became the whispering plains, alive with the gentle rustle of newly vibrant life. The echoing chasm, once a place of despair, became a serene canyon, its depths now filled with a soft, warm light, its echoes transformed into gentle, comforting memories of a world made whole. Ilara felt the profound connection to everything, the lost light no longer just in her, but flowing gay through her, connecting her to the revitalized world, to the newly glowing gloom root, to the farthest star. Her purpose was fulfilled, not as an end, but as a new beginning. The lost light now flowed freely, gently through the world, accessible to all who sought it, a quiet promise of hope and healing. She returned to the whisperwood, her journey complete. The trees, now vibrant with the world's renewed energy, welcomed her back with rustling applause. The moonstone on her chest pulsed with a soft, contented glow, mirroring the peace in her heart. The world was vibrant, full of wonder, and the night sky, cleared of all lingering shadows, sparkled with a million stars, each one a tiny reflection of the lost light that now shone everywhere. Ilara knew that the shadows might gather again, for that was the way of things. But now, the world held within it the means to heal, to find the light again. She lay down beneath the ancient boughs of the whisperwood, the gentle hum of the lost light, a lullaby in her soul. The world was safe, bathed in a soft, eternal dawn, and the light within all things would guide them, always. Ilara closed her eyes, a contented smile on her face, knowing that even in the deepest night, the lost light would forever shine, a beacon of hope, magic, and enduring peace.